stand on the southern bank of the River Thames 2,000 years ago, and Westminster is almost impossible to imagine. There is no parliament, no Westminster Abbey, no bridge crossing the river, and no clock tower striking above London. Before us lies a low, marshy island surrounded by reeds, mud, and shifting channels. Small boats move through the morning mist. Travelers wait for the tide to fall before attempting to cross the water. Far downstream, Roman Londinium is beginning to grow, but here, the future center of British power is little more than wet ground. Keep watching this exact place. A monastery will rise from the marshes. Kings will build a palace beside it. Coronations, trials, rebellions, and political conspiracies will unfold within the same few acres. Fire will destroy Parliament. Bombs will tear through it. And from the ruins, the world's most recognizable government complex will rise beside the Thames. For the next 18 minutes, Westminster will transform around it. The river will remain our visual anchor. Everything else will change. Natural banks will become stone embankments. Ferries will give way to Westminster Bridge. A small Saxon church will become one of the world's most famous abbeys. A royal residence will slowly evolve into the home of Parliament. This is not simply the history of several famous buildings. It is the story of how religion, monarchy, law, and democracy gathered beside one bend in the Thames and never truly left. In the 1st century CE, Roman London stands several kilometers downstream. Here, the river is wider, shallower, and more unpredictable. The River Tyburn divides before entering the Thames, creating a small island surrounded by marshes. Later generations will call it Thorney Island. Roman pottery, walls, and a stone coffin found beneath modern Westminster suggest that people used this landscape, while the route of Watling Street may cross the river nearby. But there is no great settlement in our frame. Reeds cover the banks. Birds rise from wetlands. Wooden boats carry travelers between patches of firmer ground. At low tide, people may attempt to cross near the island. At high tide, the water closes around it like a natural moat. The geography that makes this place difficult to inhabit will eventually make it valuable to rulers seeking privacy, defense, and access to the river. Centuries pass. Roman authority disappears. Timber buildings decay, paths vanish beneath mud, and new communities emerge farther along the Thames. By the Saxon period, more permanent occupation begins around Thorney Island. A small religious foundation probably stands here by the late 7th century, although its earliest history remains uncertain. Around 960, a Benedictine monastery is established or restored under the influence of St. Dunstan and King Edgar. It is modest compared with what will follow. Monks move between timber and stone buildings. Bells call them to prayer. Gardens and workshops occupy the drier ground, while ferries connect the island to the opposite bank. The monastery lies west of London's principal religious center, St. Paul's Cathedral. It gradually becomes known as the Westminster. A simple description of location is becoming the name of a place. During the 1040s, King Edward the Confessor chooses this quiet island for an extraordinary royal project. Beside the existing monastery, he establishes a palace overlooking the Thames. He then begins enlarging the monastic church into a massive Romanesque abbey dedicated to St. Peter. Stone arrives by boat. Wooden cranes rise near the shoreline. Masons, carpenters, and laborers crowd the island. Royal chambers spread beside monastic cloisters. Westminster is becoming both sacred and political. The new abbey is consecrated on 28th December, 1065, but Edward is too ill to attend. He dies days later and is buried before its high altar. England then enters one of the most dramatic years in its history. Harold Godwinson becomes king. William of Normandy invades. Harold falls at Hastings. On Christmas Day, 1066, William the Conqueror is crowned inside Westminster Abbey. From that moment, Westminster becomes permanently connected to the making of English monarchs. After the Norman conquest, Westminster grows into one of England's principal royal centers. In 1097, William II orders the construction of an enormous ceremonial hall beside the palace. Westminster Hall is completed 2 years later. Its stone walls rise above the riverside buildings. Inside, royal feasts, councils, and ceremonies take place beneath a vast roof. At the time, it is probably the largest hall of its kind in Europe. The river outside becomes increasingly busy. Royal boats arrive carrying nobles, officials, food, and treasure. Kitchens fill the air with smoke. Servants cross muddy courtyards, while petitioners wait near guarded entrances. London produces wealth, Westminster displays power, and between them, the Thames carries kings, bishops, merchants, and messages. During the 13th century, Westminster begins evolving beyond a royal residence. The exchequer, royal law courts, and administrative offices settle around the palace. Judges sit in Westminster Hall. Petitioners, lawyers, clerks, and officials crowd its enormous interior. Meetings resembling early parliaments are increasingly held within the palace and nearby abbey buildings. There is no single purpose-built parliamentary chamber yet. The king summons nobles, bishops, and representatives when he needs advice, taxes, or support. Over time, temporary meetings become institutions. The island is no longer merely where the king sleeps. It is becoming where the kingdom is administered. In 1245, Henry III begins rebuilding Edward the Confessor's Abbey in a new Gothic style. The transformation takes generations. Pointed arches rise above the old Romanesque church. Flying buttresses support soaring walls. Colored glass fills immense windows. Hundreds of workers shape stone, timber, metal, and marble. The shrine of Edward the Confessor becomes the spiritual center of the building. Around it, kings and queens are buried beneath elaborate monuments. Every coronation strengthens Westminster's authority. The monarch is crowned in the abbey, then moves into the palace complex for feasting, ceremony, and government. Church and state stand almost side by side. By the 14th century, Westminster is crowded with officials, monks, servants, merchants, criminals, and visitors. Buildings press against one another. Workshops and taverns appear around the palace. Boats unload firewood, food, and building materials along the muddy shore. Inside Westminster Hall, historic trials unfold. William Wallace is tried here in 1305. Kings host coronation feasts beneath its roof. During the 1390s, Richard II transforms the hall with a magnificent hammer-beam roof made from hundreds of tons of English oak brought by river. Carved angels look down from the beams. The roof expresses permanence and royal authority. The buildings may glorify rulers, but they can also witness their downfall. In 1512, fire damages the royal residential areas of the palace. Henry VIII gradually abandons Westminster as his main home and moves the royal court to nearby Whitehall. In 1540, Henry VIII dissolves Westminster's Benedictine monastery. Monks leave buildings occupied by their order for centuries. Shrines are stripped, and monastic property passes into royal hands. In 1547, the House of Commons receives St. Stephen's Chapel as its permanent meeting place. The chapel's opposing rows of choir stalls shape the new debating chamber. Government and opposition will eventually face one another across a narrow central floor. On the night of the 4th of November, 1605, Westminster appears calm. Guards move through the old palace. Boats cross the dark Thames. Parliament is preparing for a royal opening attended by King James I, nobles, bishops, and MPs. Beneath the House of Lords, however, barrels of gunpowder have been hidden inside a storeroom. A man calling himself John Johnson waits nearby. His real name is Guy Fawkes. The conspirators intend to destroy the king and Parliament in a single explosion, but officials search the building. Fawkes is discovered with the gunpowder before it can be ignited. The old palace survives. Had the plan succeeded, Westminster's political landscape, and perhaps the history of Britain, could have changed in seconds. During the 17th century, conflict between Crown and Parliament becomes war. Armies fight across England. After Parliament's victory, King Charles I is brought into Westminster Hall. His trial begins on January 20th, 1649. The king challenges the authority of the court. Commissioners accuse him of ruling tyrannically and waging war against his own people. For centuries, kings had used Westminster to display their authority. Now, Westminster has been used to judge and condemn one. For most of Westminster's history, no bridge crosses the Thames here. Travelers rely on ferries, while London Bridge, far downstream, remains the city's principal permanent crossing. That changes in 1750. Westminster Bridge opens between Westminster and Lambeth. For the first time, carts, horses, and pedestrians flow directly across our fixed view. The Abbey's western towers are completed during the same century. Government offices, houses, and taverns multiply around Parliament. The Palace and Abbey are no longer approached only through narrow streets or by boat. They become part of a grand river panorama. On the 16th of October, 1834, smoke begins rising from the Palace of Westminster. Workers have been burning old wooden tally sticks inside underfloor furnaces. Heat ignites nearby paneling. The fire spreads rapidly through the maze of timber roofs, passages, and chambers. By evening, flames tower above the Thames. Thousands gather along the riverbanks and Westminster Bridge. Artists, writers, and ordinary Londoners watch the ancient palace burn. The House of Lords is destroyed. The Commons catches fire. Windows glow orange before roofs collapse into showers of sparks. By morning, most of the old palace is gone. But Westminster Hall survives. 9 centuries of history remain standing inside a landscape of smoking ruins. The destruction creates an extraordinary opportunity. A competition is held to design a new Palace of Westminster. Charles Barry wins with a vast Gothic revival plan developed with Augustus Pugin. Construction begins in 1840. The riverside becomes a monumental building site. The shoreline is pushed farther into the Thames. Stone walls, courtyards, chambers, and towers rise over several decades. The Victoria Tower appears at one end. At the other, a great clock tower climbs above Westminster Bridge. In 1859, the Great Bell, soon known as Big Ben, is installed. Its sound becomes inseparable from London. The completed palace does not recreate the medieval building that burned. It creates an idealized Gothic vision of government. The new Parliament rises beside a river transformed by industrial London. By the 1850s, raw sewage pours into the Thames. In the hot summer of 1858, the smell becomes so unbearable that curtains inside Parliament are soaked in chemicals in an attempt to block it. The crisis becomes known as the Great Stink. Engineering now reshapes the landscape. Joseph Bazalgette's sewer system redirects waste. Massive embankments reclaim land, contain pipes, and replace tidal mud with organized roads and stone river walls. Westminster Bridge is rebuilt in cast iron and opens in its present form in 1862. The river still moves between the same banks, but it is increasingly controlled by the city surrounding it. During the Second World War, Westminster becomes a target. The palace is struck repeatedly during German air raids. Then, on the night of 10th May 1941, incendiary bombs fall across the complex. The Commons chamber burns. Flames again threaten Westminster Hall's medieval roof. Firefighters are told they may not be able to save both buildings. They choose the hall. By morning, the Commons chamber is a smoking shell, while the ancient hall survives another night of fire. Even the clock tower is struck. Glass is shattered, but the clock and bells continue functioning. Parliament keeps meeting elsewhere within Westminster. After the war, the Commons chamber is rebuilt and reopened in 1950. Traffic now crosses Westminster Bridge, where ferries once carried travelers through marshland. Riverboats pass beneath electric lights. Television cameras wait outside Parliament. Demonstrators gather in the square, while ceremonies unfold inside the Abbey. The palace remains the seat of Parliament. The Abbey remains a working church, and the setting for coronations, royal weddings, funerals, and national remembrance. Tourists see famous monuments, but beneath the paving lie older riverbanks, Saxon ditches, Roman fragments, and foundations from buildings repeatedly destroyed and replaced. The modern ground level is several meters higher than the original island. Westminster has not simply grown upward, it has accumulated. Every generation has placed another physical layer over the people who stood here before. The marsh became an island settlement. The settlement became a monastery. The monastery drew a king. The king built a palace, and the palace attracted courts, officials, and parliament. Abbey bells replaced the sounds of wetlands. Royal boats gave way to ferries, steam vessels, and modern traffic. Westminster witnessed the crowning of conquerors, the trial of a king, a conspiracy beneath Parliament, and 2 nights when fire almost erased centuries of history. Its familiar skyline appears permanent. It is not. The Palace of Westminster, standing today, is largely Victorian. The Abbey is the result of repeated rebuilding across nearly 1,000 years. Even the riverbanks have been moved and reconstructed. What survives is not one untouched version of Westminster. It is a collection of decisions to rebuild. A medieval hall was saved from flames. A bombed chamber was restored. A marshy island became the stage upon which Britain repeatedly redefined power. And tonight, when Big Ben sounds across the Thames, the bell does more than mark the hour. It echoes above Roman fragments, Saxon foundations, royal chambers, burned ruins, and the footsteps of generations who believed their Westminster would last forever. History rarely remains still, but here beside the river, it leaves a silhouette. Subscribe for more fixed camera journeys through the rise, destruction, and transformation of the world's greatest cities. And tell us in the comments, which historic location should we watch evolve next?